Oh, yeah, could have no sound. Well, I'm alive. There we go. Okay. I think we should be live. So, hello world, and welcome to the Thursday live stream. Give a few moments for people to connect, and then we'll get started. As I've said, hello world. I'm here with my wife. Now look, you're on fully. We'll turn a little bit to adjust. You can find her at From Jane on Instagram and on YouTube. For those who are new, we're going to try and do this more often on Thursdays. We're going to be doing a live session, and mostly I'll be discussing things pertaining to Christianity, apologetics, that's the answering of questions, and explaining the faith. And we'll also be picking up whatever else comes along that may be interesting. If you have any questions or comments during this talk, you can put them in the live chat, and we'll try and get to those at the end. For those who were hoping for a film from me on Tuesday, I'm just going to quickly apologize. I've been a bit sick this week, so Tuesday didn't happen. Sorry about that, but we'll get to that. We'll try and get that going as well. Quick rundown of what we do. Sundays, I've got a Bible study running on Genesis. That's still going to be coming out every week, a short study. And the idea is Tuesdays to do a pre-made video on about anything. Can be questions I get, it can be things I come across, whatever. And then Thursdays we'll be doing live. And the nice thing with the live is it will give people a chance to give their questions. Do put in the comments who you are and say hi, then we know who all's in there. Today we are going to be talking about why is there evil. And reason why I'm going to do that is I got a question from a very intelligent young girl, my wife. No, but Tessra did come with an interesting question, which was, if the world was created very good, why is there natural occurring radiation? The idea being radiation is can be harmful, and so the question is, if it's perfect, why is there radiation? And there are two ways you can go in answering this. The first way is we can do a study of radiation and what it is and how it came about and try and place it in the Bible. And
which I'm already doing.
Which is what Tessra is doing. I may one day have her tell more about it and that we analyze it that way. But what I wanted to do this time, and Tessra was happy to take this angle on the question, is we're going to get a little bit more philosophical, and we're going to go more into the idea of why do bad things exist, or why is there evil?
I was studying radiation for my job, actually. I work in the hospital, learning to do medical imaging, and I was studying radiation, but I found out it also naturally occurs in the earth, in stones. There are radioactive stones. And then I was like, well, if God made everything, if he created everything, and everything was good when he made it, then why do radioactive stones exist? So that's why I asked him, and we decided to go on the apologetics approach.
Yeah. We'll make a video at some point later on radiation and radio decay and things like that, and how it could fit within the Bible. That's for a later date. It also requires a bit more preparation than I did want for this one. This one I was already thinking about why there's evil. Actually, I've been thinking about why there's evil for the last 3 years. For those who don't know the story, I was diagnosed with leukemia, and so I was sort of doing an intellectual study on it anyway, and then was confronted with the leukemia, and then I had to face evil anyway and how that works. And so it's something that's always been on my mind, and I've thought about and pondered, and I have my ideas behind it. So I'm somewhat more prepared to answer so we say, apologetic philosophical question of evil when that arises. And what I've come down to is there are 4, shall we say, reasons why there are evil. So we'll go through those and work our way through there. Like I say, if you have comments or questions, do put them down in the chat, then we can address those as well.
Yeah, I'm looking at the chat, and
Yes.
if anything pops in, I'll tell him.
Yeah, Tessera is my moderator, so she'll be keeping an eye on that. Okay, so number 1, why is there evil? Is very simply put, without evil, how would you know what good is? How can you define something as good if you don't have something to contrast it with? And the same thing works with love and hate. How do you know what love is without knowing hate? How do you know what hot is if you don't know cold? And how do you know light without darkness? And the thought behind this is we're very dualistic in our thinking. We have 2 opposites. I'm going to come 2 opposites, and make them equal and opposite to each other. But when you actually think about it, light and darkness are not opposites of each other. Actually, darkness is the absence of light. In other words, if you bring light, darkness will disappear. Same thing with hot and cold, because heat is actually an energy source, is actually energy. So if you bring heat into a cold area, it gets warmer and the cold disappears. And you've got to look at evil and good as the same idea, is if you don't have good, then evil is what's left. And so the idea is for people who want nothing to do with God, they take away good out of their life, and naturally evil will follow. And now don't get me wrong, I'm not saying people who don't believe in a God are evil. That's not what I'm saying. We all do want good. But what I'm saying is evil is mostly the absence of good. It's, got to think of it this way. When we just do what we want, we get very selfish and we tend to do things that could be damaging. But it takes effort to actually say, you know what, I'm going to go out and I'm going to care for someone, and I'm going to worry about them, and I'm going to, in this time, I'm going to share my toilet paper with them, that precious toilet paper we all want to hoard. But it takes a bit of effort, and you've got to look at it this way, is when you want to talk about evil, how can you talk about evil how can you talk about good if you don't have evil to contrast it with? And so that is the first idea behind that. And I'm just looking, because I noticed that there is, Tessera's feed isn't updating as we go along.
Oh, okay.
And I do see Tessera's voice is hard to hear. Oh yeah, I'm somewhat more in front of the microphone.
Okay. Thanks for letting us know.
Okay. We'll keep having to jump between the 2. You can also alt-tab if you want to check that in meantime. Okay. So that is the first point. Second point, why there is evil, has got to do with the following. Sorry. Getting a hang of this.
Okay. Do we want to say what's in the comments?
I think maybe we're on the comments after we've gone through the whole list. Then we can sort of handle them one by one.
Okay.
So we'll work through the list quickly. Second point, why is there evil? Well, it comes down to free will. God gave us free will. And he did that because he loved us enough to want us to choose to love him. He didn't want to make robots. And so with that in mind, and you must remember, God made us relational beings, and we're made in God's image. God is also relational. When we talk about God the Father and Jesus, the Son of God, and the Holy Spirit, the 3 are relational. And so when God made man and woman, he made them relational as well. It's why we get married. It's why we have children and families and friends. And even for someone like me, I'm an introvert, but I still wanted to get married, and I appreciate my family. We are relational beings. So that makes us, in that regard, relational. And to have a robot that loves you doesn't mean much. When someone chooses to love you or loves you from out of themselves, that's a high praise you can get. And that's what God wanted when he created man. So he gave man the ability to choose to also not love him. And that is where people can therefore choose to not love God and choose to love other things. And then that means I can choose to love things that are not good or evil. And then that's what leads to evil in the world. In many cases, our people are choosing to live a way that God never intended. And so that brings evil about. The third area for evil, and for that we will do a trick. The third idea with evil is the fact, and this is something I'm very careful, I won't just say to any random person, but we can put it down to sin. Because of sin, that's what brings evil into the world. And we can see that from a Bible text. It says in Romans 8, verse 18 to 25, "For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing to the glory that is to be revealed to us. For the creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the sons of God. For the creation was subject to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it, in the hope that the creation itself will be set free from its bondage to corruption and obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. For we know that the whole creation has been groaning together in the pains of childbirth until now, and not not only the creation, but we ourselves who have the first fruits of the Spirit, groan inwardly as we wait eagerly for the adoption as sons, the redemption of our bodies. For in this hope we are saved. Now hope that is seen is not hope, for who hopes for what he sees? But if we hope for what we do not see, we wait for it with patience." And what this is talking about is that the creation is also, shall we say, suffering because of the sin we did. So when people talk about natural disasters, hurricanes, storms, viruses spreading across the world, those are things that are pretty much connected to the fact that we are living in a broken world. And what broke the world? We did. And that's got to do with that. I've got to put the screen back. But that's got to do with the fact that we broke the world when we sinned. And when I say we, I mean mankind. And that's because Adam was our representative. And as our representative, he made the wrong choices. Yes, he did. He had free will when he made those choices. But we all are now suffering from that, as is the whole creation. And so that is why we have, as it were, a broken world and have evil in the world. And so the third one is because of our sin. And then the fourth one, and this is sometimes the one that people do struggle with, I think, the most, comes down to God's sovereignty. Sometimes God lets evil happen because he has other ideas. And I always think about an analogy, and that's because I studied maths. But I think of God as, working a calculation on a whiteboard. And in my case, he looked and he said, if we safeguard from leukemia, that there's no evil upon him, this is what comes out of it in good. But if we, let this happen, as bad as it is and as hard as it would be, God then knows what's going to happen in the end. So he knew how it would affect me, my family, my relationships, how I would change, how they would change, how things would go further. And in his wisdom, he says that is a much better idea. And then he allows it to happen. Because in Romans 8:28, it says that he works all things for the good. Does not work all things good. He works all things for the good. And I always have to think it's the same as the story of Joseph. Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers. And eventually what happened is he became second in command of Egypt. He arranged for all the saving of the food during a time of famine. And then when his family came, he could provide them with food in a time of famine, when otherwise they would not have had anything. And in the end, he says to his brothers, in Genesis 50, verse 20, he says, "As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring about that many people should be kept alive as they are today." And so sometimes there will be times where, we're thinking something's not right, something's evil, it's wrong, it's not what we want, but then God allows it, and we might think, why, Lord, why are you letting this happen? And he does it because he's got another idea, and he knows what's best for us, and he knows that sometimes hardship will help work on our character, or will bring about something else. It's what they call the ripple effect, where a butterfly will flap its wings, and on the other side of the world, there's a hurricane. You don't know the effect of that flap of the wing at that moment. And so God will sometimes allow things because he knows what the effects will be later on. And the way I've always looked at it is he's out there to work the most good that he can. And then, in that way, he will allow certain things to happen. And so those are the four, shall we say, reasons I see for evil. Number one, if there is no evil, how can you know what good is? Number two, we have a free will, so we can choose to do evil. Number three, because of our sin, we've got a broken world, and therefore bad things happen. And number four, sometimes God just allows it to happen because he's got better ideas. Any thoughts, Destra?
Okay, let us know what you thought of those four reasons why there is evil in the world. If you have anything to add or if you have questions about it. In the meanwhile, I will go through some of the comments that came in. Well, a lot of people said hi. Gert, William, Shuni, Rick, and Lynette said hi. William says, one is the absence of the other. Yes, this is also what Gert, one of the reasons Gert has explained.
Yeah.
What evil is.
Yeah, I for philosophical reasons, I tend to point it out this way. It's, one is the absence of the other, but the other will always exist. For instance, light is there, and you cannot switch light off. We switch off lights, but I mean, what it is light is still always there. But darkness flees when light comes. And to me, that's also a powerful image of doing good, but also of God and of the gospel message. So I tend to look at it that the one can only exist if the other is not there. And the same with good and evil is to know good, you must know evil, because when good is taken out of something, we then experience the evil, and then we know what good is, and then we can appreciate the good better.
Mm-hmm. Dennis says, deviation from perfection is less than perfect. Change perfect is a bad idea. Yeah. That's, I think, also something you have said. Yeah.
Yeah. Funny thing is, if you have something perfect and you make an alteration, it means you've altered perfect, and it is no longer perfect. Whatever you think you've done, perfection is perfection. You cannot change it.
Okay, William asks if the 4 points the 4 bullet points, what Gert has said, the reasons why there's evil in the world, if they can be added in the chat. Gert will work on that right now. In the meanwhile, if anybody has a question or wants to add something, please do. Gert is now adding his 4 points into the chat session.
Okay. 4 points I added into the chat for people who want to see them. Just the summarized points, not the added notes and things I added, because I put a few things on paper, but I tend to elaborate more when I talk.
Mm-hmm. So let us know what you thought of the 4 points, but also even if you're like, how do you say, means?
Oh yeah, if you've got problems with it, if you agree with it or don't agree with it, also let us know.
Okay, Dennis says, I don't think evil is necessary ever. It's a consequence of sin.
I would agree with that. It's not that it's necessary.
No.
It's just, it is a consequence of sin. And the thing is, God doesn't cause evil, but God will sometimes allow evil. And that's the difference. I'd never say God causes evil, but God will allow evil for more as a sense of, to work something good, something better. Because we are in a broken world, so things are going to be troublesome. And so God will sometimes allow things simply to work it to His will and to His benefit, and for the good. But yes, I know there are people who talk about, some philosophers talk about what they call necessary evil. I wouldn't use that term, but like I say, I do think God will sometimes just allow it for whatever reason.
I also think if evil would be necessary, which of course we're saying it isn't, then the world wouldn't have been perfect when God made it. So, and God is perfection, so no, evil is not necessary. It's something unfortunate.
Yeah. While we wait to see if more people comment, can you think of any questions, Tessa, people would have out of this that you think we should address?
Well, a question that pops into my mind is how to deal with the evil, but sometimes you can't. You don't really have a choice. But how do you not make it weigh so heavy on you, or how do you just deal with it?
Okay, dealing with the evil is something different. I think one of the things I've learned is you've got to have ways to deal with evil, and the best way, of course, is to pray. That will always be my number one go-to. So if something's troubling you, always pray first, and then have a look and see how God responds. It's always good to get God involved in whatever you're doing anyway. Also, to just trust God. Whatever happens, you just trust Him, and that'll be the way to do it. I think that's also how Tess and I got through my sickness. We even had the talk where they said we don't know what to do anymore. Summarized, you're going to die, and we just trusted God, and God did the miracle. So yeah. You've also got to trust God. And then other ways, you've got to find ways of dealing with it. And for instance, one of the things I found, but this is a personal thing, and everyone's going to find what works for them. I would lie in hospital sometimes and I'd listen to Skillet because Skillet's music makes you want to fight for your life. You may not like the type of music, but
makes you want to run.
Tesla runs away when I play. But to me, it's music that makes me want to fight to live. So that's sort of helped me. So if you can get music that works well, or one of the things I've started to do is follow a lot of apologists, because it's something that motivates me and burns me. That's why I started my YouTube channel, and why I'm doing these live streams. Is I want to help people to understand Christianity. It'd be that they're Christians who want to grow, or if they're critics or non-Christians or whatever, but they are willing to learn and find out what it is. I'm here to answer the questions, and then it gives you something to motivate. And there'll always be, there will always be evil, but as long as you get God involved, I think is number one, and then have a couple of mechanisms to cope with the stuff, you can make it through in the end.
Yeah, sometimes my way of dealing with this is to not focus on it, but I'm a bit on the fence if that's not just sticking my head in the sand. So it's something I'm trying to work out for myself. Dennis,
common sense. A bit of common sense.
Yeah.
I think what it is don't hide from your problems, but at the same time, think about what it is, and is your fear rational? Is this really a problem? And can you do something about it? And then just trust God afterwards.
Dennis says a way how to deal with the evil is to walk in the Spirit.
Amen.
William says...
William commented on Dennis's...
William commented on Dennis's necessary of evil. I think that you are right, Dennis, but I see it as the absence created by us letting go of God's good.
I can agree with that.
Yeah.
Yes. That's why I said when you get rid of the good, what remains is evil. And I'm not saying that people who don't serve God are evil people. That's not what I'm trying to do. But what it is if you let go of good, what is left is evil. And so very often people want to say, why did God allow these evil things to happen? And sometimes the best response is, yeah, but you told God to butt out of your life. Why should you stop the evil then? I mean, if you kick out the absolute good out of life, of course evil's going to come.
But I
And so
still
that's a
believe
2.0.
God being a loving God, He would do that.
He will help. If
Yeah.
you are really willing to call and to turn to Him, He will always answer. But it's just more the natural reaction to the question, why would God allow evil?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a matter of you told God to not interfere in your life. If you get God back involved, then He will come safe.
And we had another comment from Dennis. Sinful people cause evil. God turns the circumstances that evil created into a good outcome.
Amen. Romans 8 verse 28.
Yeah. That was one of the texts
Texts.
you...
I didn't read it, but it came to mind while I was busy.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, it's a text that helped us through the
Yeah.
dark days
Yeah.
of leukemia. Yes. Okay. I don't see too many new comments coming in, so we don't want to make this go on for too long. I think we're almost at half an hour.
We
So
do have
we'll round
some extra people just tuned in. For the people that just tuned in, the points that Gert has said, why evil exists, are also in the comment section. But if you have a question, we're going to give you a couple of minutes to state your question or to make a comment. And we'll give those new people also a few minutes.
Okay, yeah. In the meantime, while they give those few minutes, do we want to dabble on the radiation directly question, or is that going to get too complicated for a few minutes?
That's quite complicated.
Okay, we'll save that for another time.
I'll summarize the beginning for the people that came later. So this all started because I am studying radiation, and then I found out it occurs natural in even in certain stones, but in the earth. And I was like, well, if God made everything and He made everything good in the beginning, why does natural radiation occur in the earth? And that's how Gert got this idea. But basically we went on the apologetics route of working out why is there evil in the world, because radiation is bad and God made everything, so why does radiation exist? And we discussed why there is evil in the world.
Yes. Okay. Anyway, while we wait to see if the new question comes in or not, just to
Guess not.
round off, we do this every Thursday now. We'll be doing a live stream, and we'll be tackling an apologetics question or issue to do with Christianity or something to that effect. Please do, if you have questions, you can leave them in the comments or send them to me directly if you know me directly.
Tell your social media.
You can find me on Facebook. I think if you just go for @Gert Jonker, you'll find me. And on Instagram and Twitter, it will be GertJR. And if you look for me on, you can also find me on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn under Science-Based Christianity. So you can look for all of those and find me there. You can leave questions there. You can also, if you're watching this after the fact, you didn't watch it live, but you watched it later, you can leave the questions in the comments as well. We'll try and answer questions on the topic then in the comments. And if you have other questions, that's a cat at the door. If you have other questions, you can just send them in, and we'll see if we can make a video on those.
We have one more comment from Dennis. I doubt mankind was supposed to be as vulnerable as we've become. We've degenerated. That's the opposite of evolved from our original states. Interesting.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
There is no such thing as a good mutation, which is what you need for evolution. Best case scenario is what they call a neutral mutation, but that means nothing changed. And of
Look
course,
at the mutation you had.
yeah, and then you get what are called negative
quite,
mutations, which
destructive.
is what I had, and they'll cause sickness and disease. And I got sickness and death is what they've caused. I got sickness and I almost got death. It's but for the grace of God
He got
that I'm
leukemia.
alive. Yeah, I had
Yeah.
leukemia twice, and both times I should have died. And it's by the grace of God that I'm alive. So yes, mutations cause disease and death. There is no such thing as a good mutation. Best interview I ever saw was Richard Dawkins was asked for an example of a positive mutation, and it was silent for minutes on end, as he could not think of a single one because they are not there. Yep.
Oh, another comment. William Jonker. Kent Hovind has some interesting theories on how we have become so vulnerable. Okay.
That's true. But there are a lot of people who do studies in these. So that's it's very interesting to look into that sort of stuff anyway.
Yeah.
And maybe at some point I might dive in there as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
No new comments.
Anyway, I want to thank everyone for listening. As I said, we do this on Thursdays. The live stream will be doing questions and talking about things of faith. Sundays, I'm bringing out a Bible study series on Genesis, trying to show that if you take Genesis 1 from the beginning and you go through the flood story as well, and you believe it literal, it is not contradictory with science. And later on we'll be doing other studies after that, and on Tuesdays I'm going to try and bring out a video as well, whatever that will be on. So do stay tuned, do subscribe, and thank you for watching.
And if you're interested in more apologetics, go to his website www.sciencebasedchristianity.com. Thanks for watching.
Yep. Keep well and God bless.